if it'll let me. Oh, it's letting me. Oh, we're here. I always get really excited when the record button works, Trent Gervais, because I'm not very technically savvy. Um, so how are you?
I'm great, thank you.
So
I'm good, doing well.
Trent Gervais is joining me right now. He's president and CEO of the Loomex Group. I had an opportunity to work under Trent, and we did some great work together. And you're specialized, obviously, Trent, in emergency preparedness, emergency response. You're a retired fire chief. I mean, this is your wheelhouse when we talk about crisis and what to expect, how to help everybody, how to help yourself. And I know you're working alongside, you work across the country in training airports, you do airport management out of the Peterborough Airport. You do a lot of work with people who are in that first responders kind of crisis intervention. Have you ever seen anything like this?
Well, no, but I can tell you that in one of my previous roles, I co-wrote a pandemic plan for a city, and I never thought I'd see the day where we actually would start talking about using arenas for morgues and that sort of thing. But no, I haven't seen anything like this. But what I will tell you is one of the things that we teach is people's emotions during a crisis. It doesn't matter how big or small the crisis is. It's on a kind of an up and down, right? And if you look at we're 2 or 3 weeks into self-isolating and that sort of thing, that people now are fatigued, they're tired, they're mentally drained, they're physically drained. There's all that uncertainty, and with that comes what? It kind of starts to come anger and that feeling that we're never going to get through this and that sort of thing. And so that we know that and we're armed with that. So we have to take charge, whether it's in your own home or whether it's with your company, your job, to say, no, we need to change our thinking. We can't let us go there because we know that that's where our mind wants to go. So we need to find those coping mechanisms and those strategies to help us work through this phase of our emotions during a crisis.
You touched on so many things right there. The anger, like personally myself, like one day I'm like, I'm okay. And then like 3 hours later, I'm like, ah, like, why am I so mad? And it's almost like energy, like a pent up of energy. Like you're like, I need to get this out. And I like, one of the things I say is like exercise, right? It's like, I just had to go for a run to get rid of it. What are your coping mechanisms that you're recommending to people?
The very first thing is, again, whether it's you're the head of a household or the leading an organization, that your mental well-being, it's the same thing. You're right, and your mental well-being is important, and so you need to figure out how you're going to be strong so you can help others. And you've heard it all online before, but diet and exercise are so critical right now. You just can't eat garbage food every day as much as you might want to, and you need to get out, whether it's a walk, it's a run. Hopefully the weather's going to improve. It's getting on your bike, and if time doesn't allow for that in your job, then you need to at least take those breaks. You can't just. I found myself last week, certain days being tied to my home office desk all day, and it's not healthy. You need to take those breaks. And it's tough because at the same time there's that pressure that, number one, you're working from home. It's out of the norm for many people, and you're feeling this pressure to have to perform even more because of the stigma. So some organizations don't like that. So but it's getting up and taking those breaks, and that's so important. So other coping mechanisms, call a friend. It's important to reach out to your peers, again, whether it's in your home with your friend network or work. They want to hear from you too. So take a break and check in with them, and by sharing your story of what you're feeling and experiencing, it's going to be validated. They're probably feeling the same thing. So together you can have a few laughs and strategize on how what each other's doing to kind of get through their day. So
I
very
love,
important.
I love laughter. I think it's
Yeah.
critical amidst any kind of serious issue. Trent, you have been through a lot of crises. Like, I always go back to the flood in Peterborough. Were you chief at the time of that?
I was at the time I was deputy fire chief, and I was the manager of emergency management. So I was actually A funny story, I was 5 months in the job, and I had 1 month left to go for my probation to be up. And I always tell the story that the flood was $100 million flood, and we had people that lost everything in 2002 and then again in 2004. And the flood was a huge learning experience for the emergency control group, because they rode this adrenaline high like we're all experiencing now during the crisis. And at the end of it, when we got into recovery, and for the year following that, people didn't know how to deal with that. They're mentally were drained. They were fatigued. They were behind on their normal work. They missed their holidays. So we learned some valuable lessons through that flood, that we need to start talking now about what the new normal is going to look like and how we're going to return to that new normal. So again, it doesn't matter whether it's you're in your household or your job or whatever you're involved in. Now is when you should be talking about what that new normal is going to look like. How are we going to reintegrate ourselves back into what was our life before this? So
I love that, because I think fundamentally we will never be the same. I don't think we'll ever be the same that we were. But and although we've never had like a global pandemic of this scale, we have had incidences around the world of catastrophe and crises, whether it be, hurricanes or like, I mean, there's been cities wiped out by major crises, and Peterborough's flood is, I mean, it's on that scale. It may not have been a massive hurricane, but we do have knowledge, and that's why I mean, you teach this when you're doing this. How important or how prepared do you think our area, Peterborough and County, has been in managing all of this?
yeah, I think first, what everybody should understand is the rule of thumb in emergency management is for every day of response, it takes 30 days to recover. So if you think about
I didn't know
um,
that.
if this pandemic goes on for it's 3 or 4 months of uncertainty, and just compound that in how long it's going to take us as a community or your community to get back to normal. And that doesn't have to be physical things like opening up a mall. It's also the mental well-being of your community. So because we're armed with that, we can make a change now to figure out what are the positive things we can do as an organization or as a household to make sure that we get through that. As a community, I can tell you from experience here in Peterborough County, in the city and the county, and stretch it out to Northumberland, Kawartha Lakes as examples. We've always had aggressive emergency management programs here in this area. We have great leaders that have trained for hours, that they conduct exercises every year. They have great, strong networks for working together. So many of the communities in Ontario are like this as well, and across Canada, they train for this all the time. So we are in good hands, and there's those good community networks like the hospital and the health units, and they're always working with the municipalities on the emergency management programs. So we're very fortunate that when something like this happened, they'd already been practicing for a pandemic to happen. So there's already plans in place that if certain things happen like the pandemic, here's what they're going to do to hit the ground running. So our communities are very fortunate to have that.
I think you're right, and I love that message, because I do feel like Canada and our community in particular, like I feel like we have a hold on that, which gives people that, when we talk about mental state, right? And I always go back to this is like Star Wars level stuff, right? It's like the only thing bigger than fear is hope and love and support. But how can we support each other when there's not I know we can talk on different levels here, Trent. Like you can talk from like a hospital perspective, and you can talk about, and then you think about at the home. But if there's not somebody to kind of tag out, right? Like, so say there's not you have to keep going. How do we, I don't know. I know you say coping mechanisms, but how do we help as a collective? Because this is such a united thing, and help our leaders. Like I'm watching the leaders every day come on, and they're doing their, their national provincial addresses. And they just each day I can see them looking more tired, more exhausted. I'm like, oh, and they're losing that hope, you almost, and which is transferable, right, to the people.
Yeah, that's an interesting statement because we one of the things we've been doing as in our organization is we've been supporting a lot of emergency control groups over the last few weeks. We're getting the calls at 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. In some cases, it's for advice. Some cases, it's helping them write some strategy. In other cases, just to listen to them vent. But one of my messages over the last week is, who's going to replace you? So you need that day off. During the flood, I didn't go home for 8 days. And it really had an effect on me that when I did finally take a day off, I went, okay, that was crazy. I can't do that again. So everybody needs that break. And you need a backup plan because you can't sustain that every day, all day. So, and it's very difficult right now when everybody's in self-isolation. Um, a couple of people that I've been working with, they started journaling,
Mm.
and every day they're journaling what they're experiencing, what they're going through. And in some cases, they've asked if they could share it. And so, it's just a little thing, but it's important that you need to know that you're being heard, right? So, some other things that families are doing. I know personally, I have a large family with siblings, and every night at 6:30 we get on a Teams call or a Zoom call, and we just talk about our days together. And some of my family's hurting worse than others, and so yeah, there's so much in the line of technology to help people with that sort of thing as well. But you can't do it alone. You have to reach out to people. So
It's amazing because sometimes people's innate response is to like shut other people out. But I don't think we've ever had so much where it's such a collective, where everybody's going through the exact same feelings, the exact same experience at the same time. Like, it's just a wild thing for everybody to be doing this together. And this is where I want to touch on, Trent, you have experienced this, that sort of armchair critic. Part of the processing of information is anger, like you said, and a lot of people want to lash out at the leaders or the protocol or how things are being done, and it's just so counterproductive. You being on that front line of being a leader and trying to help organize this, I know sometimes the people who need to hear this message aren't even listening, but what can you say? I mean, I keep trying to preach to people. I'm like, it's not time to pick a side, whether you like liberals or conservatives, or just, we all got to work together right now.
I think the number one thing that people need to remember is, despite the fact that there's good emergency plans in place, and there's all levels of government have been practicing emergency management, and they've been through disasters before. In many cases, this pandemic, everybody's writing the playbook as they go. So you can plan and exercise to death, but every scenario is different. So regardless of yeah, you're right, what government is in right now, they're making it up as they go. And so it's important that we keep that in mind. And the other thing I consider is, sometimes when people are lashing out, it's out of fear. We talk about their emotions. Sometimes it's out of fear, right, and the unknown. And it's perfectly normal that right now that people are going to say the government isn't doing enough, and who's going to pay for this, and that's all normal stuff that happens during an emergencies. But what we have to remember is, the most important thing right now is, worry about you. How are you going to get through the next few days, the next few months, and have those plans that are, today, a week, 4 months, and 6 months down the road. The government's doing their best. I'm actually pretty impressed with all levels of government, how they've been trying to respond to this. It's never going to be perfect, because they are figuring out as they go. But worry about yourself first and how you're going to get through it.
Great advice. And I'm pretty excited to say that such a, national organization is in our community of Peterborough and the Kawarthas, the Loomex group, and the kind of staff and people that you have on board there. If people want more information, Trent, or they need help providing a strategy or writing a plan, what can Loomex group offer? What can you guys do?
Yeah, that's a good point. So business continuity, which is what we're into, right? And again, could just be your household. It doesn't have to be a big organization or a small business. And one of the things we do is we write business continuity plans. We write business resumption plans. We do incident debriefs. So every organization out there, even your own household, should do a debrief and say, "Wow, if I have to go through that again, what would I change? What would I do different?" Um, so that's all pretty important, and we do that sort of thing. We also, if you just need an ear to validate the road you're going down, we're there for you as well. And I think the one thing to remember for the small businesses out there is the track record for businesses surviving. I hate to say this right now, but the track record isn't great for businesses surviving after a crisis like this, these small businesses. So because, again, you know that, you have the power right now to change that, to plan what business resumption looks like so that you can survive. If you take our own company even, we've had a significant delay in revenues, but we've already retooled to be able to make sure we're sustainable when we come through this in certain areas until some of that revenues pick back up. So you have that knowledge, you need to plan now. So we have great staff that are willing to help. And again, right now, we just want to help people be successful. So we have people there for that.
I love that. That's actually what I was going to ask you was, how is your company doing? How are you guys doing? How are you managing? I mean, you're dealing with an airport. How has everything impacted you guys?
Yeah, it's interesting. So we operate 7 airports across Canada, and we work for probably another 30, I would say at least. And we have 3 divisions in our company, and that division, airports are essential. So we've been good with that. The areas that we've seen a delay in revenues is in this division. It's the education and compliance division, and all our clients, or most of our clients, are municipalities, hospitals, airports that are all knee deep into response right now. So our immediate reaction to them was, don't worry about all the work we had booked. You guys have bigger things to worry about. We'll book that later. And we kind of moved into a support mode for them, because our strategy is not the quick cash kind of let's get in, get out. It's the long-term relationships, and some we've had for 10 or 12 years. So we just want to make sure that they're successful moving forward. So that's probably the biggest area that it's hit us so far.
That's perfect advice when we look at even the education model right now. I just did a post on this as well, where it's like we need to move mindset into support rather than sort of, it's like I laughed. I said, my goals have drastically shifted from growing some big multi-million business to, okay, I guess I don't eat all the snacks in the fridge today. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
so you have to kind of adjust. And there's Dolly, my puppy. She's adjusting too. She wants in, out, in, out. She never used to have somebody here all the time. But I love also, I think this is important. I keep leaving this message with people. It's not what you want, but almost always out of these crises. And I don't know if you can think of an example off the top of your head, becomes amazing innovation. Like, this is the time when that's that pressure. I always say the diamond is located under extreme pressure. And when we're under extreme pressure, it's sometimes amazing what a community or a person is able to come up with or innovate.
Yeah, every crisis there comes opportunity, and I don't mean opportunity in a gouge way where we triple the price of our hand. It's, you look at companies that were not diverse before. So in our company, I refuse to have one product line or one line of business for this reason, that we need to have diversity. So you look at some of the really cool things that is happening now with people making PPE that are retooling to make, the PPE or the hand sanitizer and all that sort of thing. And that's what your company needs to do. You have so many talents within your organization. So what can they do? Because it is going to look different when you get out of this. So think of the travel industry. It was decimated overnight. So, but you can bet that they're looking at retooling right now on what that's going to look like when they start back up. So you need to do that as an organization, and as a household, even when you come out of this, which is kind of a bit off topic here, but that you need to retool things because they're not going to look the same when you're done. So we're all smart people, so we gotta sit down and figure out what it's going to look like and what that diversity can look like.
Agreed. Well said. Trent Gervais, the Loomex group, right here in Peterborough in the Kawartha, is based out of the Peterborough Airport. And I know you're offering like an email support right now too. You're just sending out information. Right now, I love knowledge is our best friend and experience. And I know you and a lot of people have that. So we have to share it. We have to share it to support each other.
That's right. And, our email address is, our website is loomex.ca, Loomex.ca. So if you need an ear, we're here for you, and anything we can do to help.
Yeah, it's, I learned a lot working with you guys in that. Do you remember the time we showed up for work and you ran the emergency exercise and you didn't tell us and we had to recreate a plane crash? It was,
Yeah.
it's one of the best exercises, and I know you do those kinds of things. They're called simulated cells, and it was just like, I've never been a part of something like that, and I know hospitals and schools already do this, but wow, what a opportunity to be set up for. And that's why I'm like, even little things like fire drills with your kids, and like, this is what we're gonna like. You don't think that it's ever gonna come to fruition, and then all of a sudden one day you're like, gee, I'm really glad I did those emergency preparedness exercises.
Responders use a line, it's anywhere, anytime.
Yes.
Who would have expected 6 months ago that we'd be all sitting at home self-isolating right now? So I hate to, exactly. So I hate to cry wolf, but what a great feeling when you're ready to deal with this if it happens again.
Yeah, and if you're not ready, leaning on people who are.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not everybody has the means to, right? So they need the supports, and they're there for them. So
hence that's the whole thing. You got to take care of everyone. That's the whole thing. Thanks so much, Trent. I know you're going to have lots more coming up on your website and information. And again, can't stress enough that we're glad that you're in our own community. And see you on the other side. Is that what they say?
that's it. See you on the other side. Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks, Trent.